let's start with Adam Neiffer now then. What did you find interesting? We've already discussed off show that he's restored your faith in humanity.
I feel that should be explained. so yeah, it is always rewarding to speak to people who are really passionate about what they do. Adam has a level of intentionality and purposefulness behind what he does that attests to great mindset. So yeah, it was really beautiful to hear him talk about certain things, which I look forward to diving in.
Yeah. What stood out for you in the conversation apart from his just general niceness and perspective?
His general wonderfulness. I loved his story about Coach Ed, his football coach. I loved his story about he made some kind of penalty playing football, and the coach grabbed him by the helmet and said, "What are you doing?" And he responded, and coach framed this as, keep your aggressiveness, but pay attention to what you're doing. So what I loved about that story is it demonstrated so beautifully someone who was invested in the process and not in the results, like overemphasizing a penalty or any kind of result or mistake, right? And I think the quote that I wrote down here from Adam was, mistakes happen and they're not a bad thing. They're an opportunity to learn. That's growth mindset right there.
Which sounds so trite and cliche when it's not applied. But when it's applied like that, it facilitates growth. And that's what we're after.
Internalizing that message of process over results is way more work than people think it is.
Okay. Talk to me about that work. Where do we start?
When we focus on results, that looks like overemphasizing what went wrong and beating ourselves up for it, rather than viewing every mistake or setback as an opportunity to improve. So there's this level of, if I make a mistake or I do anything wrong, that's who I am. What my output defines me, versus, again, a growth mindset, which is, whatever happens, mistakes are good things. They're things to learn from and grow from. So there's no result in that. It's purely, where's my opportunity to progress?
Yeah. Find the obstacle within, find the opportunity within the obstacle. That's a huge piece. And I really like how there was no dismissal of what went wrong. Like, I think the phrase was something around, that was a bonehead move, but good aggression, like something like that. Like, it was like, okay, you really screwed up, but like, it's happened now, like good aggression. And I'm sure there's, what wasn't said is like, okay, here's a tactical way to get over it. So it's like, okay, accept reality, like, or view reality as it actually is, find out some sort of positive in there and then work to overcome it. But sometimes we like spend a whole class going, oh shit, I shouldn't have done this, or I really messed up my macros there, or I had a cheat meal when I shouldn't have done, or whatever. And it's just kind of this constant, we need our own inner coach head to say, okay, bit of a stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
You're trying this, didn't work. Let's figure out a way to overcome it.
How much more effective is that at facilitating change than the tack that we often take, which is born of self-loathing, which is to beat ourselves over the head with our mistakes?
Yeah. That used to be my favorite MO. That's what I'd be doing.
It's a hallmark of perfectionism.
Yeah, exactly right. Perfectionism. This is something we see a lot in our athletes, and I'm constantly surprised how we start working with someone in week 2, week 3, and I'm thinking, there's no way there's an ounce of perfectionism in there. And then you get to like week 4, you're like, oh, it's a lot of perfectionism for like a considerable percentage of who we're working with.
Yes. Perfectionism, in my opinion, is a culturally held belief. And the belief is essentially, look good, at all costs, make sure that you appear as though you have it all together and you don't make any mistakes. If you have to put effort in, it's not meant for you.
That one is huge. Like
Yeah.
story time. Okay. When I was this is a humble brag, but with a bad ending. So I don't think it does work out as a humble brag.
Okay.
When I went to secondary school initially, so high school, I was put in a gifted and talented register. Look at the title already. I'm gifted and talented. And that was what I had to, from that point on, I thought that is what I have to hold out. And like, if I don't appear gifted and talented, and look what those words mean as well. They mean I haven't had to try, I'm born as that. And then if there was anything that went the opposite way to that, then there was nothing that I could like do. So if I had to try at something, I remember thinking, I'm not going to try at this, because if I do, then like then I'm obviously not gifted and talented. Back to that identity thing from last episode.
Oh yeah, same story, Tom. I was often praised for being very bright and gifted when I was a kid. I can actually remember my third grade teacher. We were making dioramas, fave activity, and I created like a moving piece to it. And he dragged me to the principal's office to show the principal my diorama because he was so blown by it. After that, like, look how gifted this child is, I was afraid of trying. It sapped all of my creativity. It sapped my ability to put effort into things because I was so scared of losing that portion of my identity.
Nice. Yeah. Because if I lose that, then who am
and
I?
I'm nothing.
Like,
I'm worthless.
And yeah, exactly. I'm worthless. I'm nothing special. I'm not worth the attention that I was getting. I saw a direct correspondence between that belief of like I can't show that I'm putting effort in, to where I got to within CrossFit and my competitive side of things. Because like got pretty good pretty quickly, and I was like, oh, I'm competitive. I was a fit guy. I moved pretty well. I had a good background in sport, so I did pretty well pretty quickly. And then I started finding things really, really difficult. Suddenly I have to like learn to snatch properly as opposed to just wrestling a bar over my head. Suddenly I had to actually like do some gymnastics work as opposed to just doing strict pull-ups. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm trying here. And I can now see, looking back, the trade-off, or the beginning of the tail, which is why it's like, which is why I find what we do so meaningful. Because like with my mistakes, our mistakes, all of our shared mistakes, we can see, or just lack of education or fortune of being in the right situations. Now we're able to help other people whilst they're in that process. And like, it's a good thing in the long run.
Absolutely. I try to be the coach that I needed.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah, like our own coach Ed, our own coach Rachel, our own coach John. Like it's nice. It's nice to have that somewhere in the back of your head.
Absolutely.
It's again a trite piece of advice of like, be oh my god, what was it? I've completely forgotten.
Focus on the process over the results.
There we go.
Yeah. Exactly. But it's a practice. It's not something that you just do. Yeah, exactly.
You actually stole my first point there, Coach Ed. That's what I was going to mention. So what's next on your list?
Oh, yeah. I thought their gyms, I'm going to call it their inspiration statement, because that's what we call it in Mindset Rx'd. Their gym's inspiration statement or ethos is humble, hungry, and awesome. And the reason they created that was a need to be able to define why they are doing what they're doing. You can know that you love something, but not know why. And if you don't know why, it's much more easy to get caught up in the results versus the process, right? Because you always have control over whether you are humble, hungry, and awesome.
So these are obviously,
if you have a certain number of members or whatever your measure of success is.
Exactly right. So this applies both on a kind of a business level, like say our like kind of our affiliate owners, even our personal trainers, everyone who listens to this who's in that realm, they can take something from it. But there's also the personal application, and we don't typically think about this. We kind of hear, what are your values? bounded around, and it's usually in the kind of the realm of work.
Mm.
Where does this come into like our personal journey for athletes?
Mm. The idea of the inspiration statement for athletes is to provide a guiding light for decision making. When we know it's more than our why, right? We don't say why, like what's your why? Why are you doing this? We actually ask, who are you becoming? And in asking who, we're looking at character traits, things that we admire about other people, things that we want to develop in ourselves. And that's where we derive meaning from in our entire lives. So it can apply in the gym, it can apply in business, but it also applies in the way that we approach our relationships and the way that we approach our own training or the way that we approach coaching others.
I like this. And I really like what you said originally as well about this being accessible at any time. Like it's always available to us. Can you speak more about that and like I suppose the alternative to it?
Yeah. The alternative is being so fixated on what's outside of our control. I'll go back to the example of having a certain number of members in a gym. We know that affiliates are largely struggling still because of COVID. So the number of members is a indicator of success, and I'm using air quotes, is an indicator of success for a lot of gyms. But we don't have direct control over it. We can't actually purposely put certain numbers of people into our gyms. We don't have control over that result. But what I can control is whether or not I'm living up to who I'm becoming. And when I am, I'll use the CrossFit Fort Vancouver's example. If I'm being humble, hungry, and awesome, people will want to come to my gym because that's who I am authentically. And people respond to authenticity. They don't respond to superficial artifice and, can I swear?
Yeah.
And bullshit from books that we've read and things that we think we're supposed to be into and things that we think that we're supposed to be. People respond to what's authentic about us. So when we can define what our authentic selves are, I get to be that person at any moment. So I hit a decision point. Am I going to, it helps me take the hard path versus the easy path, right?
Yeah. And that
it's
hard path being,
for.
The hard path being the path that's more likely to lead you to where you want to get to as well, because you're confronting that problem in inverted commas.
Exactly.
And aiming towards what you have the potential to become.
Yeah. Rather than aiming away from discomfort, as we say.
Yeah. I feel that the inspiration statements are also a good choice for not just that in the moment decision making of, do I put my hands on my knees or do I go back to the barbell, or do I have the apple or the candy or whatever it is, but it's also like on a macro level, in 3 years from now, does this align with who I really want to be? Like, I'm aiming at the games, but is that just because everyone that I know and everyone in the community is aiming at the games? I'm aiming at opening an affiliate, but is that because just everyone that I know wants to open an affiliate, and that's like the progression later? Like, so if I ask myself truly, and I know my inspiration statement, or I know kind of basically a quick summary of who I want to become that's easily memorable, if I know that can allow me or shine light upon the direction that is most meaningful to me.
Absolutely. And I love that you brought up the long-term view too, because it's really easy to face a failure when you're being that person and allow that to derail you. But if your target is, we usually use 2 to 3 years from now, you have time. You're a process.
Yeah. There's that quote that Brian Grasso, my mentor, says, like, we massively overestimate what we can achieve in 2 to 3 months, but massively underestimate what we can achieve in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah. What do you think about the kind of, firstly, the letter that Adam required Justin to write in order to work with him?
Yeah. What an interesting accountability tool. It is essentially, what's the word I want? Like a little gateway. Like you gotta pass this gate and show me that you actually really want this. He had
it's
to
almost
put,
like an initiation test or something like that.
totally, yeah. But the initiation was simply show me that you're willing to work hard and do things that are uncomfortable.
And
Right.
unconventional as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Are you willing to trust this process with me?
Do you remember what Adam was looking for when he looked at that letter? It was something around, I just wanted to see who he was and his values outside of training. And the thing that made him more interested, and I can't remember whether I'm just putting two different segments of the interview together or not, but he also spoke about this this idea that he had something going on outside of training and he was more than just an athlete. And I found that really interesting too, because quite often we think about you have to be this ultimate, like, I am only dedicated to this one thing. And that is true. And also there's depth to it, because like it's this paradox, because Matt Fraser, the example that always comes to me, he wouldn't use a steak knife for this, I think it was 2 months coming up to competition, just in case he cut his finger and he couldn't train. But he had other elements in his personality and other things he was interested in. Coffee, guns, namely. Like those are his things. Those are other things he was interested in, and things that he wanted. So he had this like other aspect, like, and the business was put on hold and these other kind of big desires, but you still had other things going on.
Yeah. Yeah. We're talking a lot about identity. But it's true, the ability to call on other aspects of life to have that balance between striving for greatness and high performance while being a well-rounded human being. And well-rounded doesn't have to mean you're in a relationship, pursuing family. It can, if that's what's meaningful to you, but having more. Do you remember what Justin's other things were?
The other,
yeah, like what rounded him out to Adam?
No, I can't.
Was it family?
There's something I found. There's education as well.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
There's other things. It was like, it was something that he wanted to do now, but also he had like kind of other options as well, but they were kind of pushed back by a few years.
Yeah. I think now it was school. It was like, I want to do this while I have time because of school.
Yeah. That was something I found very interesting. And then the other kind of unconventional move, and the one that shows that Adam had Justin's best interests at heart from the very, very beginning, was the choice to say, if you don't get to the games next year, I want you to find a new coach. I'm not coaching you anymore. I just thought that was such an incredible decision to say, I'm not going to stand in your way. And this was perpetuated, the idea was perpetuated by the idea that he would outsource to specialist strength coaches, specialist gymnastics coaches. As soon as he felt that he'd reached his limit and he was impeding Justin's growth, he would limit that and outsource it. So what do you think about his decision to put it all online?
The phrase that's coming to mind is lack of ego. But it's not quite what I'm reaching for. Dedication to Justin as a person, and the knowledge that he has the potential to achieve what he wants, and seeing that he may be the thing in the way. Adam may be the thing in the way.
Yeah. And that's an uncomfortable thing to admit.
That potential reality. That's very brave.
Yeah, and knowing your own limitations.
Yes.
And being comfortable with the fact that you're limited. There's this, like, I'm stealing massively from Jordan Peterson here, but he talks about this kind of old Jewish proverb where he says, like, what does an omnipotent, basically, what's an all-knowing, all-seeing, all-hearing, ever-living God lack? And the answer is limitations. And like, that's the one thing that humans have that makes us very special, even compared to God. We have these limitations. So to understand our limitations is something that we can use to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
love
Justin did that very well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else that came up in that interview that you feel was salient?
Salient. I think that the phrase "winners find a way to win" can really shut a lot of people down.
Go on, tell me.
Winners find a way to win. So, but what he meant by that, he used the example of the 550-yard sprint event where Justin, he ended up at the back of the pack. He got jostled back there. There was nothing really that he could have done about it. And we talked about this in the Emily podcast, but he had the thought, oh, shoot. Because you will, when something's going wrong, that's completely reasonable. He had the thought, oh, shoot. And then he quickly shifted from that to, you know what? It doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. I am going to beat every person I can in this heat. And then he went on to just pass one person at a time. I don't remember how he placed in the heat, but it wasn't what you would have expected looking at him being second to last. And the thing is, he learned how to do that. It's not just something that he or anyone really just knows how to do. We have to practice that skill.
Yeah. And that's the thing that we are trying to say. Like, that's the point of Mindset Rx, that like, you're not born with this ability. And like, almost back to our original stories about being gifted and talented, it's like, you're not born with this capacity. You develop it and you practice it, and you go wrong a few times and you run into your own limitations time and time again. And it's through the confrontation with those and the constant pursuit of a 1% improvement that you learn to be a winner that always finds a way. It's not this immediate thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's a process.
Yeah, exactly right. The final thing I want to bring out is how interesting I found that yet again, the fittest man on earth struggled with belonging at the CrossFit Games.
Yeah.
And
tell the story.
Sorry.
Story.
I can't, because the dogs are barking. So I think I'm going to have to cut this bit out.
Okay.
I can't really remember the story, much of it. But I do remember that Justin was a filthy 150.
Yeah.
Was it? And even still there, he was doubting himself. And it was like, and then going from there to the games, like that was the first time they really realized, like, oh, these might have a shot there at getting to the games. And he obviously did incredibly well in the year one, and then year two, the second year at the games, when he wasn't a rookie. It's still feeling that, like, do I belong here? Am I good enough? Like, it must be crazy intimidating to look around, seeing you competing against Brent Fikowski, Pat Vellner, Matt Fraser, like the first year, like holy shit, like where am I?
Well, I think what Adam framed it as is Justin started doing CrossFit when he was pretty young. So he grew up with a lot of these athletes competing at the games, and then he's standing in lanes next to them. That is pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah. And beating them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I loved about him as an athlete in his rookie year is he was very clearly willing to get very uncomfortable in a workout next to Matt Fraser. I'm remembering in particular, maybe it was the first event, but they had those really heavy shoulder to overhead. Yeah. And he was just going for it. I'm so curious to know if there were thoughts in his head relating to do your best.